Welcome to the AI and Big Data Expo at the RAI here in Amsterdam, and the third episode of this special C-Suite podcast we're producing in partnership with Exfluency, the AI-driven translation and localisation system. We're interviewing more of the key speakers from Exfluency stand to find out how AI is transforming our present and shaping our future. I'm your host, Graham Barrett. Hope you enjoy the show. I'm here now with Aoibhinn Reddington, Head of Strategy for AI-powered operations at Deloitte. Aoibhinn, nice to see you.
You too, nice to see you.
You've just spoken on the panel session, which was called Building an Augmented Workforce. So how was that, and what were the key points made?
Building an augmented workforce is exactly what I do with my clients, so it was a good fit for me. So what we're seeing a lot is, I work a lot in the public sector, and we see that many of these organizations are struggling to do what they would like to do for citizens with the amount of people that they have. So there's these clients are coming into this question, like, how do we use AI from an efficiency standpoint? Pretty much like most organizations, they're wondering, and like people in the audience are wondering, like, there's so much, how do we understand what will actually work for us, and how can we do it in a secure way, and how do we find out what will be the winning use cases for us that we should invest in. So it was very interesting. I think if I were to summarize, I think a lot of the questions that came from the audience were like, oh, the speed is so high, should we be scared, what happens when we automate everything? And I think the panel offered some nuance there, where we do recognize the complexity that these technologies bring alongside them. So it's a bit different if you're talking about like out-of-the-box solutions like Microsoft is integrating Copilot. So that might be a bit more straightforward to implement, although you would need to bring your organization along to some certain level of AI literacy. But if you're making these custom machine learning solutions, there's just a world of complexity that comes with that, so it's not something that you can do in a day. That's what we talked about. Yeah.
Well, no, it's interesting that you were talking about the feedback from the audience there, because if you think about what's in the news, it's all about, well, we're all going to lose our jobs because of AI. But is the reality slightly different, a little more nuanced than that?
If you ask me that question, are we going to be automated away? That kind of makes the assumption that we're going to use AI to do everything we're doing now, and then humans become irrelevant. While what I'm seeing at my clients, so I can't speak for everything and in every industry, is that we have a set amount of people in these organizations. They're not necessarily meeting the service delivery that they would like to. So, for example, citizens might have to wait several weeks to get certain services. So there's pretty well-defined way that we would like to spend humans' time if we didn't have to do kind of machine work. So I don't see that necessarily as a big threat for today or tomorrow. But then, of course, you can go into the sci-fi future where we can automate everything. I think that will be very complex to rule out. But let's say that did happen. You could think of we're all working 40-hour weeks. Is that necessary? Will we go back, scale down, or that could be an option?
Yeah. And how do you think AI is going to change our working lives, maybe over the short term rather than the long term?
Well, I don't like it when people make these big declarations and know exactly what's going to happen in the next few years, because we are seeing these big speeds and innovations, and we're taking different turns every few months. But I'll talk about what I see today. What I'm seeing is AI being used as a productivity strategy. So if we have people, we're trying to achieve a certain, delivering a certain service, and we're not achieving that with the amount of people that we have now, how can we use AI to support these people to deliver that service, let's say? And what's interesting today is that we now have these foundational models, like GPT-4, for example. So we're kind of democratizing the way that AI can be used, because until recently, you would have had needed massive amounts of data, large resources to train these models, and now we can basically use these foundations provided by big tech companies and then fine-tune them for our own efforts. So I think that's an interesting thing. So I think that will accelerate AI adoption into not necessarily tech companies. So what we will see, I think the most exciting things are in public sector will be the text-related use cases, so document processing, text generation. But I also see probably personalization will be an interesting thing. I'm quite excited about the healthcare use cases also. I have a background in biomedical engineering, so I'm excited by that also. But I think it really depends on the vision of the leadership of a company, what are they going to invest in. But probably from a productivity standpoint, that's what I see happening at the moment.
I'd also love to ask you about, you sit on the board of Women in AI in the Netherlands, so what progress are you making in increasing female representation in AI, and how much further do you think you need to go?
Good question. We have some work to do there, to be honest. Basing this off of World Economic Forum's reports, they make annual reports based on LinkedIn data. So in 2022, we saw that 30% of AI talent were female. And women's representation in high-level leadership roles, we're talking VP, C-suite, that drops a lot lower. So you're seeing about 13%.
Wow. Yeah.
Sad.
So, a very long way to go then. So what can be done? What work are you doing with Women in AI? How are you trying to improve that situation?
So AI and machine learning models, they'll always be as non-biased as they are created. So the data that goes into them, but also maybe if the industry that's creating these AI models is non-diverse, then lots of stuff will be overlooked. Maybe negative side effects that can't be foreseen, they will also not be caught. And besides that, teams with diverse perspectives, they perform better. We've seen that, and are better at challenging assumptions. So there's lots of advantages to having, if you're making a model that's impacting society as a whole, it's better to have a team creating that and monitoring that is representative of the group that's being impacted. And let's be honest, there's a talent shortage in AI. So if there's a talent pool that's not being used, such as women, we should be investing into bringing those along.
Yeah, I mean, that makes complete sense. I mean, the 13% stat that you just gave us, I mean, that's incredible, isn't it? And that really needs to go up dramatically.
Yeah, you see that retention is an issue in the AI industry. You see that there's a rise in women graduating from STEM university courses and entering the workforce, but then you can see that retention is an issue and there's a drop, so you see it declining as we go higher up into these organizations. So what can we do?
Yeah, you tell me.
So the things that we do with Women in AI, we try to improve perception and recognition and representation. So we have this, we partner with this organization called Equals, and we do this role model campaign in Amsterdam. So we have these massive posters and we put women with really cool jobs in tech and AI, so that they're spread out through the whole city and people can see them, so they exist. We also do our Women in AI awards, so these women get recognition and they get a light shown on them. But we also have our mentorship program, so as I mentioned, retention is an issue, so we have different mentor-mentee relationships in all stages of a career, let's say. So we have students who are being mentored by women who are in their early phases of their career, but then there's also more senior women mentoring women that are struggling to find what's the next step in my career. We also have our Activate program, which is we go to areas in Amsterdam at the moment where we don't see that many students, high school students, flowing into these STEM bachelors. So what we do with them is we go and we take the kids and we do a workshop with them for the day. And we were partnering with ING and Schiphol on that. So we bring them along to see like this real live data science teams. With the aim to just show them that, for you this could also be possible. These are schools in areas that are, let's say, have a lower socioeconomic position. So we would like to, show these kids that they should also see themselves in that position. We also have an Accelerate program, which is like a startup incubator. So it's a way where we can support women that are founders. So support them on their entrepreneurial journey. And what I personally focus on is our Women in AI circles. So we do monthly meetups where women can meet each other. We usually do like a mini lecture or workshop, some type of content, a panel. And then there's networking afterwards. So it's just basically a place where we can meet each other and form partnerships and be productive in that way. So that's what we do. And as far as progress, it's very difficult to say because the numbers always come a bit later. It's not real-time data. But we have seen an increase in women in STEM. It's also difficult to differentiate AI and tech in general. Yeah, so we've seen an increase of 1.6% from 2015, which is outpaces the growth that we see outside of STEM. So at least that's an indicator that something is changing. But let's be clear, the things that we're doing are kind of pragmatic solutions to larger systemic challenges. So it's not an easy task.
Yeah, well, it sounds like superb and vital work, to be honest. So thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for joining me on the podcast, Aoibhinn Reddington.
Thanks for having me.
Joining me now is Michiel van Lunsen, the product owner, credit risk model validation at ING.
Correct. Yes.
Nice to see you here today.
Yeah, nice to be here.
How are you enjoying the conference?
It's very nice. I mean, it's very nice to see like-minded people here. I also noticed that model validation is not something that most people here know about, so it was good to present that and to give some insights from a bank like ING.
Well, that might be a good starting point then to actually define these terms for us, because
yes.
Model risk and model validation. So explain those terms, please.
Yeah, okay. It will be difficult for me to really turn it down in a couple of minutes, but I'll try my best. So we have a big part in the model lifecycle. So model lifecycle is basically the beginning of a model to the end of the model, and we are part of that process. So basically a model has been developed by ING on a local level or a global level, and for us it's our job to determine where the key risks are in that model. So you can imagine a model has been developed in 2 years, 3 years, and we go over a model from beginning to the end and everything that has to do with that model in a couple of months. And our goal is to see, okay, are there any key risks in this model that we need to identify, that we need to tackle as a bank to make the bank safer, basically.
Why is model validation so critical to a bank? You mentioned the safety aspect there.
The safety, definitely. Yeah, so it depends on where you are in a bank. So you can imagine a bank like ING has a lot of models, right? So, and the scope of these models also varies quite a lot. So we have advanced analytics models who are very much related to machine learning, which we talked about today. But you can also imagine we have credit risk models related to the amount of capital that we need to hold. So it really depends on the domain. But for example, for us, the most important thing is to make the bank safer. But you can also imagine an external regulator like the European Central Bank is also going to look at what we have performed, right? How safe we are as an organization. So it's also important to take a stakeholder like that into account when we're doing these validations.
Yeah. Okay, so can you do this on a day-to-day basis? How does this actually work in practice? Can you kind of put it into words?
Yeah, well, it's difficult, but we have 9 validation dimensions, as we call it. So we look at 9 different aspects of a model, and that includes looking at the data. So how good is the data? So we dive into the data, we do data quality checks of our own. We look at the design of the model, so design choices, what type of features you have created, how you come to the outcome of a model. We look at the output, obviously. We look at how well is this model performing. Is it in line with our expectations? Are you looking at the right metrics? Things like that. we talk to the business side. So you can imagine a model has been designed with a specific purpose in mind, but does it align with the expectation of the business? We look at the limitations of a model. There's so much actually what we do. You can imagine some models are designed with a certain business expertise in mind. So we need to challenge those models. Is the business expertise, is that in line with our expectation, and does it perform well? So we sometimes build an AI model just to check, does this model perform well, and would an AI solution be better than this business experience?
Okay. Well, we're here at the AI and Big Data Expo.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about AI and how that is aiding your work.
It is aiding our work in actually two aspects. So first things are model development using AI to make the bank better, right? So you can imagine for customer interactions, so we want to target the right people, then you can use AI to target specific customers for advertisement, for example. These are parts that fall into non-regulatory space, so we have a little bit of freedom to also use AI to make our processes better, to make the bank better. From our perspective as model validation, we also use AI to challenge the more standard models. Like I was talking before about rule-based systems. These are business expertise kind of models. We use AI to challenge these models to see how well they are performing and how well the design has been made, right? So there's two aspects of that.
Yeah. And what are then the implications for things like KYC, know your customer, and fraud?
Yeah, that's a very big topic. So in KYC, we have that's a big space by itself. So you have anti-money laundering, you have fraud, you have anomaly detection models who look at how suspicious each transaction can be compared to others. What is different from the rest, basically. We have rule-based systems as well because of the regulatory aspects related to KYC. And then we have AI systems who actually try to reduce the amount of false positives there. So you can imagine when you set a threshold with rule-based systems, there's a lot of transactions flagged, and we only have limited resources to investigate these transactions, right? So we use AI systems to reduce the amounts of false positives there. So we only need to look at the really suspicious cases there.
Yeah, fascinating stuff and highly complex. But thank you so much, Michiel van Lunsen, for bringing all that together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joining me now is Guy Dowers. Let's just start by giving us an introduction to atNorth and the services you provide.
Yeah, so first of all, atNorth is a pan-Nordic data center provider. And on top of that, we have, of course, we are active in all the Nordic countries in Europe. And so we build data centers for the highest performance computing and artificial intelligence. As well as we have built a whole stack of infrastructure as a service on top to run AI and HPC applications in the most sustainable way you can imagine.
Yeah. And what are the key advantages of the Nordic region for these data centers?
So first of all is the massive amount of renewable energy that is available there. But also the climate is ideal for data centers that consume and run and consume and produce a lot of energy. So they are actually way more efficient than actually in other places in the world, in Central Europe, in the US. And that's why clients from all over the world are coming to Nordics to run their heavy workloads, their back-end calculations like processing of large language models or AI applications or big simulations. They come and run them in the Nordics.
Yeah, well that's fascinating. And can you tell us maybe some of the clients you have worked with and maybe some of the work you've undertaken for them? Are you allowed to divulge that?
Yeah, we can mention a couple. Others don't want to be mentioned because for privacy reasons. But I can mention a couple. One of them is a US company called Tomorrow.io. They are an extremely fast weather forecasting company. They have also launched now recently lots of satellites. So they collect data from the satellites from all over the world. They let them calculate the data in Nordics, in Iceland and in Sweden. And so they then expose the results of it, expose it back over APIs to applications all over the world, like Uber or airlines. And so that's one example. Another example is BNP Paribas, one of Europe's biggest banks. So they bring their massive risk calculations and massive calculations to, again, Sweden, Iceland, primarily to achieve their sustainability objectives. So they were running it previously in France, UK, somewhere else in Europe, but they have abandoned that and brought these heavy workloads to atNorth to help them really achieve primarily their sustainability objectives, but also to get more compute for the same money and to get more done with the same expenditure.
Yeah. Now, as we all know, there's an explosion of AI innovation at the moment. Can you just give us an idea of the data, the time, and the expenditure needed to kind of fuel all of this innovation?
Yeah. Well, everybody knows ChatGPT and the likes. There is a lot of initiatives in the world of training and retraining large language models and foundation models to really build generative AI. And it's an extremely promising new domain that make companies, enterprises, or users way more efficient. So they bring first these large language models to calculate, so they are extremely complex mathematical models. If you look at GPT-3, where OpenAI has based ChatGPT on, that alone, that takes like 10,000 GPUs for weeks, months to just calculate it once. And that is then calculated based on information that comes from the internet. But then when enterprises start to use this, they don't want to use internet data, they don't want to have the data from their own enterprise exposed to others, so they want to run that then in a private cloud. So they want to set that up as a private environment. So they train then the models on their own data, and they make their own language models out of it for their own use with their clients and for their customer support. Healthcare companies are doing that, banks are doing that. So it's massive amount of data, massive amount of compute that needs to run, get the most out of it for the investment. But it's like a rat race for getting most models, most intelligent models with all the newest data and the most privacy data that comes to us.
Yeah, and sure. I guess as the tools become more sophisticated, then the data needed just goes up and up and up. So where does this all end, and how can it be managed sustainably?
Well, that is the point. Do that sustainably, because people go to just the public cloud and run it. That's good when you have a small test and when you have no idea where it's going to end to try it out. But when it becomes very massive calculations, the public cloud is too expensive. But also, where is it run in the public cloud? You actually don't know. It's like Amazon Azure, whoever decides where it runs. It runs in the data centers where they are. It's somewhere else in the world. So it's not done in the most sustainable way, but it's also not done in the most economical way. So that's what we try to achieve, is that our clients wants to get the most out of it, but wants also to do it in a sustainable way, so that they don't jeopardize the climate and don't jeopardize the future for our kids and ourselves.
Well, Guy, that was absolutely fascinating. Enjoy your time here at the conference. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, I'm here with Vidya Ranade, who's the Digital Director, Frieslandcampina. Nice to see you, Vidya.
Same here. Thank you.
Now, you've just given a presentation on a multi-horizon approach to data and analytics. What are the three horizons?
Yeah, so when you think about three horizons, probably everybody has heard in the context of analytics about three analytics horizons, which are descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. So what I thought was there's a similar sort of analogy here, slightly different but similar, on how you could look at data in three horizons as well. And the three horizons for data are essentially using your data to maximum today, whatever data exists today. If you look a little bit out 1 to 3 years down the line, then you want to probably start thinking about, hey, what are the new data sources that I could make available? And this could be existing data sources, but just in bad quality or bad shape. So the next horizon is actually working on those data sets and making them useful over that horizon. And even beyond that, if you think about it, it's all about creating data by systematically digitizing your processes. So there's plenty of processes today in businesses which are digitized, maybe they don't happen on pen and paper, but they actually are not systematically collecting their data. So if you're looking at a horizon which maybe is around 2 to 5 years out, you want to actually start thinking about, hey, what are the data sources that I want to create for my next foundation for digital transformation?
Okay, so the obvious follow-up question is why? Why is it important to work on these 3 horizons?
Yeah. So what typically I think people working in data field probably know that, but maybe appreciate it less in their day-to-day work, is if you think about the second horizon, which is all about improving data quality, it does not happen overnight. You need to activate the organization, you need to activate the leadership, you have to sort of provide transparency into where the data quality is bad, maybe even prioritize where you want to improve data quality. So you got to invest a lot of time of the organization in doing that, and you have to activate all this machinery. So if you want to benefit 1 or 3 years out, you actually have to start today with it, right? So that's with respect to the second horizon. And the third horizon is equally well, if you want to create a good set of data, good quality data, you have to start collecting it for some time, right? So once again, you got to start now. So the crux of my message was, if you want to do digital transformation today and for the future, focus on the data set, not just for today, but also for the future.
And then I guess you've got to bring these 3 horizons together, don't you? So what are the challenges to doing that?
Yeah. So one thing that I typically observe, and it's certainly true in our organization, is this very often you need 3 different kind of skills to work on the 3 horizons. So if you think about the first horizon, you're looking at the classical DNA kind of resources. So you're looking at cloud engineers, data modelers, data scientists, these kind of people. And that is what people think about when they think about data analytics today, right? I mean, this by far is the composition of DNA teams as well. Now, if you want to work on the next horizon, you've got to think about digitizing processes, which actually is a more traditional IT skill, but it's not necessarily available in the same organization. And the third bit, which is all about creating data for the future, I mean, we tend to use things like Power Platform, which is kind of a very low-code, easy way to digitize your smaller processes. And once again, that's a completely different skill, which is not really available within the DNA community. So I think the biggest problem you have probably is co-location of all these skills. And we were fortunate that we could do it in our organization because we started from scratch with our digital unit. But in many other organizations, that's not the case. Very often you just have the DNA people involved. Even if you look into the IT organizations, they are actually also siloed in a very similar way. So in IT as well, you've got 3 different departments, and you've got to actually work with 3 different departments if you want to address 3 different issues.
And you touched on it there, but what is your approach to all of this at Frieslandcampina?
Yeah, I mean, as I told you, we were fortunate enough to actually start from scratch. So we actually shaped our digital unit, kind of thinking about these 3 horizons and how we want to work in the future. So for us, it was a little bit less of a challenge. So we actually managed to get all the people involved, and now in my team, we have all these 3 competencies that we need. That's one way of solving, but maybe I'm curious to hear, maybe there are other ways of solving that people have taken, in other companies. I don't know of any, but I'm pretty sure there are some. Maybe even the IT organization is more sort of together in a sense, and not as siloed as in maybe our institution, so maybe that's another way of solving.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is what this event is about, isn't it? It's about listening to other approaches, exactly. Discussing them. Just a final question for you, Vidya. What outcomes have you seen at Frieslandcampina, and what more do you hope to achieve?
I mean, of course, when we started our digital journey, we started with the ambition that we want to improve speed and efficiency of our R&D organization, and that's exactly what we've been working on. So we've actually, over the course of past 3 years, that's when we approximately started formally our digital journey. I think we've digitized, we are digitizing actually a couple of processes, working on the second horizon. But we have also taken existing data sets and we have unlocked them and we have made available to the people. So I think there's a few decisions that now can happen at a much better speed, which is what we wanted to do. There's a few things which were laborious, like extracting insight from data was laborious. We've simplified that through our data transformation, ETL, and BI stack. So we are essentially working towards the set goal that we set about for ourselves, which is to basically increase the speed and efficiency for R&D. And we are well on course to do that.
Yeah. Well, good luck with achieving those goals. Vidya, Ranade, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me here. Cheers.
Okay, I'm here with Rowan van Dongen, Consultant Manufacturing Analytics at AVEVA Select Benelux. Rowan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, great to be here.
Yeah, it's really nice to meet you. And I know you're giving a presentation here about sustainable operations, and you're having, chats with your clients, 24/7. I imagine. Are they talking to you about sustainability? Is that one of their real drivers?
Yeah, that's a very big driver because sustainability is a hot topic as of today. Of course, the Paris Agreement, that kind of stuff. Companies want to save their energy, save money, and that kind of stuff. So it's a really important question nowadays, and that's one of the reasons I'm going to hold this presentation tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. And what else are they trying to achieve? That they'll come to you. Obviously, they've got objectives that they want to achieve. How do you help them achieve it?
Well, we first go to the bottom line of the question, right? Because you want to achieve something, but in order to achieve something, you have some questions, you have some KPIs, some key performance indicators that are important for these customers. Because you really need to know what kind of ideas a company has in order to support them in their way of sustainable operations.
What can you tell us about analytics for industry? I know that's a big part of your operations. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Analytics for Industry is a company I work for, and we are basically a company that supports or facilitates manufacturing companies in order to become more sustainable. So in order to become more sustainable, we deliver dashboarding and try to have a better look on the data, because the data sets need to be of good quality. You have a good quality data, and based on that you can move forward to these KPIs of sustainable operations.
Okay, so it's all about the sustainability picture then. This is all playing into the same thing and what you want to achieve for your clients. I mean, the obvious question is, how do you do it?
As Analytics for Industry, we've created a standardized energy monitoring system. So this is basically a full-blown package with 4 sets of dashboards that has some insights in how many energy you consumed per batch, per product, per line, per asset, but also per work order. And that's something we really need to It's very important for different organizations, because you have the process data, the sensor data, but you also have the information about relational data, and those two needs to be contextualized to each other. And those contextualization is happening before dashboards, and that's something we try to deliver to the customers.
Okay. Can you give us a kind of live example to bring this to life a little bit with a client that you're working with at the moment?
Yeah, at the moment I'm working with a food manufacturer here in the Netherlands. And they have basically 2 kind of questions. One question is about overall equipment effectiveness. So how can I improve my operation by availability, performance of my assets, but also the quality of my products. But also the other side of the story is energy monitoring. They really want an energy monitoring solution to be able to meet their energy goals. For example, they want to save 2% of gigajoules per milk, because they try to save more money on the input side of the factory, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're obviously doing a great job with them. We're here at the AI and Big Data Expo. So what about AI? What role is that playing in the conversations you're having with these clients?
That's a very good question, because AI is often being picked at the conversation, because AI is a buzzword, so to say. Let's call it just a buzzword. People really want to have AI, they want to predict their maintenance, they want to predict their energy consumption over the next decade. But let's be honest, let's be realistic. AI can be something that can be done without data. You need to start somewhere. You need to have a fundament of your operations. You have to have ownership of your data. You need to know what you're analyzing and where it's coming from. And that's something the energy monitoring solution for manufacturing we offer is a starting point for this journey, for this data journey of this customer. And based on this starting point, we facilitate customers to be able to move forward in this data journey, and in the future they will reach these utopia, for example, this utopia of predicting their energy consumption.
So you've almost got to go backwards before you go forwards. Is that the kind of message you're trying to get across?
That's really the message I'm going to give you in this podcast as well.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, Rowan van Dongen, thanks so very much for joining me on the podcast. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
I'm here now with Giuseppe Lenci, who is the Business Intelligence Specialist at Oord. Really nice to see you here today.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me and actually the company to have a little bit of a conversation about this nice event that we're having today at Amsterdam, and about the different good stuff that is being shared, and perhaps a little bit about what I just shared in the panel.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the great conversations happening here today. And you mentioned your panel, which was called Making the Most of Data. So what were some of the key points you made during that session?
Yeah, so we were meant to discuss a couple of topics that I would just say chunk in 3 parts. One is about how we make data available for our business consumers, and how to make most of the data, touching one point which is data democratization, and how data should be made available for people that are not tech aware. And what about IT? What roles do we have in the IT organization to enable that? Another one, quite important, is how to break data silos that are currently existing in your siloed company, which means how currently you connect to your source systems, how you process that data into a consumable format for the end user, and what about the silos that you are creating right now in your company. And the third element, which is also important there, is how the data silos and data democratization have a saying on how every company should be pursuing an energy transition, and actually collaborating towards that global purpose that we have. So we touched on those 3 elements, and we had a quite interesting contender, which is Foot Locker and Oord. So our company is about ships, and we have 108 of them. If you don't know about Oord, just Google the Palms of Dubai, and you'll find a big. That's us. We go with a ship, take sand, and build interesting stuff. But we also build wind farms at the North Sea. So, in a way, we're collaborating towards this transition in a way that we are making sure that every new element on energy is actually based on helping the climate to not be where it is right now and where it's heading, which is quite bad.
And what about a data-driven culture? How do you create and nurture that? Could you give us some insights into that?
Sure. So one of the things that we have at Oord is called data-driven marine ingenuity. Marine ingenuity is about the value that we create for our customers, and data-driven means a lot of cultural behaviors that we're expecting you as a consumer to have. This implies, and I think data-driven has been just a hot topic across time, and right now it's shifting in a big way. In the sense of the following, BI systems, business intelligence systems, are right now shifting into another state, which is the augmented consumer way. Think about things like ChatGPT integrating into your Microsoft Power BI product, and ChatGPT actually being the developer for you. So you have now the ability to prompt, if you prompt well, and actually get insights on that data. And that means a change in the behaviors and the culture that we should expect you as a manager in order to query and get data. So data-driven means not only knowing how to query your data, prompt it, but also in these new terms means that we need to make sure that people are trained in a way that they know what is a fact, what is a dimension, and perhaps tell them how to create proper context, proper questions towards querying those BI systems that we are providing. So data-driven touches a lot of points, and 80% is the human part, and 20% the technology that we should be making available for this new environment. One of the things that we touched in the conversation was, okay, we have a lot of data pipelines, 100 of those connecting to an ERP system or CRM and so on. But right now we have technologies that are bringing all the data into one lake. So it's not anymore that chief data officer, it's actually chief integrations officer. That's currently what we have been doing in the last 10 years, connecting systems and making lakes to create relations on that. But it's more about, okay, if it's not a problem anymore, integrating data, what is the problem now? How all that data it's used, and now it's the time to think about how your company is going to evolve on the cultural aspects, so that people that are not technically aware are able to get into the data in a properly fashion. So I think we have a gigantic leap to make, which is how do you set up a proper behavior, like say agenda, to train the managers how to be precise. If they spot data quality mistakes, raise the red flag. Number one element on data-driven behavior. Number two, if it says 53, why are you going right? You should go straight. There's a factor of people just not relying on their opinions. And in that sense, we need to evolve in a way that data now is accessible. Now, what about what you would do in the behavior points?
Yeah. Final question for you. There's been a lot of discussions about LLMs, large language models, here at the conference. How do you use those at Van Oord?
All right. So the technology is enterprise made available, not there yet. So. If there is a company already doing that I think they went into the preferred channels of the main providers, call it ChatGPT. But if you go there, one of the things that we had a conversation with Microsoft, which is really inspiring, is that you have, the infrastructure and how ChatGPT works is so massive that you cannot host it in your company, only the data center of Microsoft. But what if you are allowed to actually have your own LLM on the company and train them with the knowledge of your company? In the context of Van Oord, we take the knowledge that we have of 150 years for 108 ships and just say, okay, based on this knowledge, let's train this LLM so that it makes proper conclusions about atmosphere, about currents, about waves, about how to dredge the sand or the soil from X to Y. Actually, LLMs are going to be fastly at hand, and hopefully we can go into the preferred channel, because then people are enabled, companies like Van Oord, to train their own LLMs, sourcing all the infra from huge parties like Microsoft, and start to implement those as the real context for every user. Just imagine if I have you in one of our ships and you don't have a heck of a knowledge of what is that red button about. Well, then you will have an LLM that he gives you all the context, and please don't touch it.
Yeah.
So I think we are on the verge of getting into that ecosystems in a more practical way for companies like us we're not into data, we are into vessels. But we need to get into the new state, so I think LLMs will play a huge role in the next upcoming years, and also because the main providers are moving so fast in productionizing this that we need to keep up.
No, some real exciting possibilities there. So thank you for taking me through that, and Giuseppe, Lenci, thanks for your time today.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, joining me now is Gary Muddyman, President of Exfluency. Gary, it's really good to see you.
Good to see you too, Graham.
Yeah, just wondering, as we reach the end of the AI and Big Data Expo here in Amsterdam, what have been your impressions of the event?
Well, as you won't be surprised to know, I've been to a lot of these sort of things over many years. And it's amongst the best, actually, that I've attended, certainly in terms of our booth traffic has been extraordinarily high, particularly yesterday. So, yeah, it's been good. Enjoyed it.
What were you trying to get out of the event, and has it met those expectations?
Yeah. Well, I think there are two things really. The first thing was to introduce ourselves to the market and make more people aware of what Exfluency can do for them. But very much we're also here to learn, and there's some big brains knocking around as in various interactions I've had, over the last couple of days has proven really, and really interesting. And I know I was very pleased that Jarro's speech went down so well, particularly with this type of audience.
Yeah. What was the feedback on his speech? I was interested to know
great.
That.
I saw he was a bit of a rock star at the networking party last night, and I think his depth of knowledge and his experience in this sector over many years, I think, came through in the speech. And lots of like-minded people wanted to have a conversation with him.
Yeah. Has this made you think about future events as well? Is this these the kind of places you want to be at?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the challenge for a company like us is to get your name out there. I think once people understand what it is we can provide for their businesses, they're genuinely interested. It's a very expensive thing to be able to get your name out there, though, and you can meet so many potential buyers in a very concentrated area and time if you come to these sort of events. So it's something that we will certainly look at doing more of in the future.
Yeah, well, brilliant. And well, just to say, it's been great being on your stand, seeing your guys, how they interact. So
it's been nice having a bit of glamour on the stand. So thanks, Claude.
Yeah, Gary, thank you very much.
Thank you too.
I hope you've enjoyed these conversations from the 2023 AI and Big Data Expo. Thanks to all my guests for their time and insights, and to Exfluency for hosting us on their stand and partnering with the podcast. If you've enjoyed these interviews and you'd like to contribute to the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. You can find us on LinkedIn and our other social media channels. All of the links can be found at csuitepodcast.com, where you can also catch up with our previous shows and follow us for automatic downloads of each episode via your favourite podcast app. And if you've enjoyed the podcast, please do give us a positive rating and review. Finally, if you'd like to get in touch with the show, you can do that via the contact form on the website, or you can find me, Graham Barrett, and the C-Suite Podcast on LinkedIn. But for now, thanks for listening and goodbye.